now call to order the February 10th, 2015 meeting of the Traffic Review Advisory Board. Good afternoon and welcome. The Traffic Review Advisory Board reviews items of interest regarding parking and traffic within the city of Oshkosh. We are an advisory board, and our favorable recommendations today will go before the Oshkosh Common Council. The council can accept or reject any recommendation from this board. If the board does not recommend an item and you don't agree with our decision, you may discuss the item with any common council member, and the council member may sponsor a new ordinance regarding the item. All items recommended by this board require 2 readings before the common council. The first reading will take place on Tuesday, February 24th at 6 p.m., and you will be allowed to comment on the item at that time, though the council will take no action. On Tuesday, March 10th, 2015, at 6 p.m., the item will be on a second reading, at which time the council will take action. You will again be allowed to speak to the item. For this afternoon's meeting, I will read each agenda item, at which time, if you would like to speak, please step up to the podium and give your name and address. I do ask that you keep your comments pertinent to the agenda item that you are speaking to. The item will then come back to the board for discussion and action. Okay, first item is approval of minutes.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we'll take a roll. Becker.
Aye.
Haas.
Aye.
Zinsky.
Aye.
And Schuster.
Aye.
Carried.
Don't forget me.
Oh, I didn't say 'cause you'd made the motions.
Aye.
Okay, new business. A request for no parking on Wheatfield Way, east side from Rochefield Way to 260 feet north of Rochefield Way. The current condition is unrestricted parking.
Okay, this was a request from a resident in that area. There was, in December, there was a bad crash there, but it didn't, at the time they made the request, they thought it was due to the on-street parking there. However, the crash wasn't related to on-street parking, but in relation to that, I did get comments from some of the residents there, and they had requested that there be parking removed on one side of the street. And I did take a look at it, and it's a narrower street. It's 30 feet wide. So based on our warrants, with a valid petition that would justify removing parking from one side of the street, when cars are parked on both sides of the streets, it is very difficult to get through there. So I could agree with them there that parking probably is warranted to be removed from one side of the street. That would still allow them to park on the other side of the street if they had visitors.
Plus, there's the corner house. They can park on the other street, can't they? Or?
Yes, and there is parking available on Rochefield. So if you're on the corner there of Wheatfield, you could park on Rochefield. So I haven't heard any objections to it. We've notified all the neighbors, obviously.
And is that going to be no parking all the way down the Timothy Trail then? Or is it going to be like so far down from?
It's basically, I don't have the projector up, but it's up to around the curve.
Okay, so 200, just the 260 is the.
Yeah, there's a light pole there, and we'll put the sign on the light pole, basically, and it basically prevents parking from Rochefield until you get around that curve, and there is a slight incline there as well.
Corner to here, basically. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Second.
Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Becker.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Haas.
Aye.
Szynski.
Aye.
Herman.
Aye.
Schuster.
Aye.
Carried.
Item number 2, a request for no parking on one side of Congress Avenue between Elmwood Avenue and Algoma Boulevard. The current condition, no parking north side from Algoma Boulevard to 80 feet east of Algoma Boulevard.
This was a request I got from a citizen, and he was concerned, especially he has a full-size truck, and said it's difficult to get through that area on Congress when there are events at the Payne and there's cars parked on both sides of the street. Currently, there's no parking on the north side from Algoma to 80 feet east of Algoma, and there's also no parking that one's a little more confusing, but basically from the Fox River to 175 feet east of Algoma on the south side. So there really is already limited parking in that area. There are speed humps, or there is at least one speed hump in that area, which helps with traffic calming. And the current street is 36 feet wide, which under our traffic warrants would not justify removing parking. There also, I know over the years there's quite a significant demand for parking in that area from the Payne Center. They do have limited parking, and being that many of the events are on weekends with the traffic calming already there, and the street being 36 feet wide, I don't think it's justified to remove parking on one side. I don't know if anybody's here to speak to that.
Yeah, if you'd like to step up to the podium and give us your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Aaron Shear. I live at 1720 Cliffview Drive, but here for the Payne Arts Center and Gardens at 1410 Algoma Boulevard. And just really short and sweet, we'd really like to keep the parking if we could. We are very busy, especially on the weekends. There's about, it didn't really say whether it'd be north side or south side, but if it was south side, we'd lose about 12 to 14 cars that could park there. And those spaces are definitely used a lot, and we are anticipating a busy summer. And the one thing I think might be a benefit, but this is really your expertise, is the city did add a speed hump to slow traffic down there. And when it does get busier, I do think that having cars park on both sides forces traffic to slow down even more. And so I think that's kind of a benefit of both sides there. But if there's any questions for us, that's pretty much it. We just like to keep the parking if we can.
Okay, thank you.
Art Rathjen, 625 Pearl Avenue, here on behalf of the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh Foundation. We happen to own the home that our chancellor resides in. That's in this area, and similar to Aaron's comments, we also find the parking convenient. Quite honestly, though, we felt the greatest addition you've already undertaken, and that is the speed bump. It has slowed down traffic dramatically, but when the chancellor plans on entertaining, and we expect the new chancellor to arrive in his home early spring, we know we will have greater entertainment needs, and similar with the events of the Payne, we just find that convenient parking. But quite honestly, we already believe that it is safe. But it would be a significant change for us if, in fact, residentially, he could not have guests park outside his home. So our hope is that the road is wide enough, and that you feel that the speed bump would go ahead and make that the safest possible thoroughfare without limiting parking for residents and those guests coming to entertain.
Thank you.
Hi, Pete Gillespie, 1435 Congress. So this directly affects us. If my wife was here, she'd want me to speak up a little more loudly to the point of the parking is an issue there. Removing parking on one side would be a big issue. I guess that's simply put, when the Payne has their events, their wonderful events and wonderful neighbors, removing that parking is going to cause some real problems on our block, on our street, directly in front of our house. So it's an issue that I think we have to look at today, and down the road we'll have to look at as business increases over there. There's going to be more parking necessary. And when Andrew finally settles in, our new next door neighbor, the chancellor, I'm sure he'd be here too with a few words if he had the experience on that street during the busy times. So I would encourage you to keep some parking on our street. So thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion amongst the board?
I'm curious, the timing on this request, I would assume, was within the last 3-4 weeks, give or take?
Yes.
I haven't had the opportunity, and of course, conditions change daily, but do we know what the snow condition is on that road? Because obviously that's a contributing factor this time of year. Again, there's not too many events, forgive me, at the Payne or anywhere else because of the weather, but, that certainly plays a role in it, and I see our police liaisons here as well. Again, just from an observational perspective, I think those play roles in that process. If we can talk with Public Works and make sure that they keep that tight to the curb, and if I can make this same observation to our police liaison, obviously if we've got people parking 16, 18 inches out from the curb, that's a problem. And ultimately, things come full circle. Small cars were all the rage, but if we've got people driving full-size pickup, obviously those take up more room along the curbs. So I think it's just a manifestation of a couple of different things potentially.
Yeah, and this request, if I remember right, came over the holidays, basically, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
And we always see an uptick in these requests during the winter, so.
Right, I mean, there's always snow creep, and
Yeah.
I have to take that into consideration.
At some events, they used to put the temporary no parking signs on one side, because my parents used to live on the next block. I don't know if they do that at all anymore, and I know they did on the art fair thing. I remember the parking being restricted, those temporary signs on one side. But I mean, like I said, my parents lived on the next block, and I didn't really see like a huge problem with it. And there's only the few houses on the one side, and two of the people are here to support keeping the parking.
Actually, we're all here because the paint
Oh.
is the middle one.
Okay. So it wasn't even a citizen really affected by it.
Yeah, and the citizen that requested said he was going to try to make the meeting, but obviously he didn't. Yeah, and he called, he did say he understood the demand for parking, and he was just wondering if there's anything we could do, which sounds like snow removal and some of those things we can definitely look at.
Yeah.
Certainly can't make.
And they're not having as many weddings and stuff in the winter.
Can I make one more comment? Can I add one more thought? Just
Sure.
as a resident there, if there was a stoplight at Elmwood and Congress Avenue, that might encourage a little more caution. There's times when the traffic, I would think, you'd consider having a stop up there. It's, people use that as a shortcut. Instead of taking a left on Algoma, they figure it's a shortcut to Murden through town to Murden.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of traffic that goes that way that might consider taking the more direct route of Algoma and then up Murdoch if there were a stoplight there.
Yeah, generally, that's a residential area, and we generally don't put stoplights in residential areas. It wouldn't meet the warrants, but yeah, I appreciate the suggestion.
They also have the calming bumps further down on Congress too, so. I mean, I know some people would use it, but I mean, it's not that heavily used of a.
I do think the snow creep is a big part of this issue, and it hasn't been as bad this year, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really.
Yeah, in the past couple of years when we got slammed, yeah.
But they were
Yeah.
creeping, and we were trying to do it a little bit, but, turn into those big blocks of ice.
Sure.
What about a blinking stop sign? That would be visible from that intersection of Algoma and Congress.
And I don't know what the long-term process is, but if there was an opportunity, I'm kind of intrigued by the idea of bump outs on that block. I call them bump outs, where you narrow the
Sure.
street. Is that something that's still happening in the city or not so much?
They do, I mean, we have them on Main Street, but to do something like that would have to be part of a street reconstruction, because they're quite expensive. And that area is not on the capital improvement plan for the next 5 years, I know.
Okay.
So generally, we wouldn't consider something like that unless it was part of street reconstruction.
I see.
The blinking stop sign, we only have one of those in the city. And generally, we use those if for some reason there was a lot of accidents and traffic didn't stop.
I'm just trying to think of.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
It's your job.
Yes.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there any outside chance that the Payne can deal with Martin Luther or the city, maybe the three work together, that maybe you could rent space or lease space, at least at the far eastern end of their parking lot? I know when they have funerals and weddings, they want their parking lot, but other than that, I'm wondering if there would be some way the three of you could work it out.
We do occasionally for our bigger events, and we actually have a parking lot too.
Okay.
The issue is that they're all really far away from the entrance, so
Okay.
So when people want to park as close as they can, and so they fill up that street section first, because that's really the best parking right through. There's only 7 spaces in front of the Payne, and then it kind of is Congress next. So eventually it spreads to Martin Luther and our parking lot even, but they like that close.
Years ago, they got a door on the wall between.
Any other discussion amongst the board?
Move it.
Call the roll.
Becker?
No.
Cross?
No.
Haas?
No.
Szynski?
No.
Berman?
No.
Schuster?
No.
Lost 6-0.
Okay, item number 3, a request for autistic child signs.
Okay, this request was actually withdrawn, but I did just want to bring it to the board's attention. The parties that requested this was part of the Fox Valley Autism Society. They did get feedback from multiple municipalities, me being one of them, and the municipalities were overwhelmingly opposed to these types of signs. So we don't have to take action on this because the request was withdrawn, but I did, just for the board's knowledge, I wanted to let you know what our policy is on these. Currently, we don't have a policy for autistic child signs, and I haven't got a request for one before. We do have, with the blind and deaf child signs, we do occasionally get requests, not real often. We do have a couple of them that have been put up over the years. How we've handled those is administratively. If somebody asks, we would put one up, and then we check back with them every 2 years to see if it's still necessary. So there are a few of those out there. So I would think that with this, we would handle it in a similar manner. However, generally, I recommend against these types of signs, the same as children at play signs. I get requests for those. I've been here almost a year, and I've got at least 6 requests for those already. And some of the reasons that we don't put those up is because they're not enforceable. You get a proliferation of signs, and people tend to ignore them. They get desensitized to them, and it's really not really telling you there's an inherent danger. So it's hard as a motorist. It's not really telling you what you're supposed to do. So for those reasons, we generally don't put up these types of signs. And that's pretty consistent with what other municipalities have found too. Some municipalities have done studies on them and shown that there's no difference in safety whether there was a sign there or not. So that's how we handle them currently. I don't know if you guys had any discussion on that.
Okay. Item number 4, a request to change the ending times for the parking restrictions to 4 p.m. on Kentucky Street, west side. The current condition is no parking, stopping, standing, or waiting on school days between 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., and then again from 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. from New York Avenue to 375 feet north of New York Avenue, and no parking on school days between 7:30 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. from 375 feet north of New York Avenue to Nevada Avenue.
This was a request from the police department, and the reason for the request is that the end time for middle schools has changed in the last year. So they're saying that the current middle school schedule goes till 3:37 p.m. And in that case, the police department's saying that the streets could be becoming pretty congested, and they can't really enforce the sign since it only goes till 3:30. So this would make, by changing it to the 4 p.m., that would cover the school dismissal time. And the police department's saying that would help them out quite a bit.
So just a point of clarification, everything else remains the same, we're just bumping it from
Yes.
3 to 4 o'clock?
Yep.
I know we've hit a lot of these signage over the years, just trying to make them consistent around the city. How is that going to affect the other schools and such?
Sure. Actually, 4A is, these are the two, so this would be over by Merrill, and then 4A is over by South Park. I did do as much checking as I could, and the majority of the signs are, say, till 4 p.m. These are the only two I found that said 3:30 on them. So I think that would be it's pretty consistent with the rest of them. At some point, we must have went to 4 p.m. These might have been there before that. But I tried to catch any that didn't say 4 p.m. And the school district, I know they're currently getting public input and doing evaluation on their school times, but I don't see it, I don't think they're going to go past 4. They're talking about maybe bumping it earlier again, so.
Any other discussion? Move it.
Second.
Call the roll.
Becker,
Aye.
Oz,
Aye.
Szynski,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Schuster.
Aye.
Carried.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, I missed it.
Item 4A, request to change the ending time for the parking restriction to 4 p.m. on Florida Avenue, north side. Current condition, no parking, stopping, standing, waiting, bus loading zone from Delaware Street to 266 feet west between 2:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. on school days.
This is the same thing. It's related to number 4. It's the same explanation. This is the one that's over by South Park.
Move it.
Second.
Call the roll. Becker,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Oz,
Aye.
Szynski,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Schuster.
Aye.
Carried.
Item number 5, a request for road diet on Jackson Street between Murdoch Avenue and the river. The current condition is a 4-lane street.
Okay, this is a citizen request, and I believe they're here to speak on it. Jackson Street, it was widened to 4 lanes, and the terrace was reduced to 18 inches in 2002 as part of the U.S. Highway 45 project. And the residents had wrote a letter to the city manager and the council requesting a possible road diet on Jackson Street between Murdoch and the river. As you know, road diets are becoming more popular with bike lanes in places such as Commercial Avenue and Neenah, and there are some benefits to them. The traffic volume threshold for an effective road diet is about 15,000 vehicles per day, and actually I just talked to the DOT today because I saw them at another meeting, and that's pretty much the threshold in their standard as well. And according to the latest traffic counts on the DOT's interactive website, traffic counts are about 13,900 south of Murdoch, roundabout about 14,700 between Congress and New York. This is, the traffic maybe hasn't increased as much as they expect in 2001, but there's still pretty heavy traffic on Jackson Street. Some of the other issues there are there are over 100 driveways in that area. If we restricted traffic to 1 lane each direction, it could make it difficult to get in and out of driveways. Jackson Street it's US Highway 45, it's a truck route, and that's identified as an arterial and a main truck route in the comprehensive plan for the city. In the foreseeable future, I don't see that changing. With the way that was designed and the way Main Street was designed in recent years, that's no longer really a viable truck route. The biggest concern on my end is Jackson Street's also alternate Highway 41. So that means it's the major north route through the city. So if the Butamore Bridge were closed, traffic would get detoured down Jackson Street. Another concern is the Bike and Pedestrian Committee did not include Jackson Street in the plan for bike facilities. They didn't feel it was a good fit because of the volume. So in general, I'm very supportive of road diets and think there's many benefits from them. However, I'm not sure that Jackson Street is the best candidate for that treatment.
What's the bike plan, Wisconsin Street?
Yeah, it's actually, I should have brought that with me. It does use Wisconsin north of Murdoch. So if we did, like we're going to talk about that next, but we're talking about the road diet over to Murdoch, and then it would go up Wisconsin on the north end.
So this being a part of a state highway, do we even have jurisdiction to make a choice here?
I did talk to the DOT, and they felt the traffic volume was pretty high for a road diet to be effective there. They didn't specifically say yes or no. They would have to give their input, though. I would have to run it by them, basically, and they would want to see the plan. But their initial reaction was that's a lot of traffic for that type of treatment.
Is Captain Cheney here to talk about this or the other one?
Yeah, is anybody, I don't know if
I would
he
just
was here to talk about it.
reiterate, out of all the different things that were talked about here, and I have talked with the Warren Shires, I understand their point of view as well, but the alternate route is a really big concern of mine. If you don't know how much, if you haven't seen us use that, we've used it a couple times in the past few years. That's an all-hands-on-deck kind of situation. We have auxiliary coming in, and we're pumping a lot of traffic through there. So that is out of everything, that is one of my biggest concerns out of it. When I did talk with the Schneiders, and I hope I'm pronouncing your last name.
Yeah, right.
I steered them in the direction of the, what the bike plan was and things like that, because at the time I didn't know where they were, and Jim, you just addressed that, so that answers that portion in my mind. But that was one area that I thought maybe they'd look to, because I didn't know if that was in there in the bike route plan.
About the alternate first. Can we make a comment about the alternate?
Sure.
Plan?
Yeah.
I don't know if you want Tim to step up and.
Just give us your name and address, and you can stay seated right there, that's fine.
Ross?
Well, I'm one of the Warren Schneiders. So
He's Ross.
I'm Ross. I'm Jackson.
If we start just on the alternate thing,
Well,
why can't,
yeah.
why don't you talk about that? If you use road diet,
Huh?
if you use road diet, how can you use the alternate emergency route?
Well, I think first of all, if you have some planned routes, it's been so designed, whether it's truck traffic or truck routes, for some reason, heading north into the industrial park, you can't even go there on Main Street.
The alternate,
Trucking.
the emergency.
I know, but I mean, these are things that can be changed. If the shutdown is on the bridge, or if the shutdown is before the bridge, it's a matter of getting a plan together for northbound and southbound and having it on file as to what streets that you can take heading north, coming off of South Park, off of 44 or down South Park, or if it's northbound off of 110, 110 is now 45. I think alternate plans could be set up ahead of time, whether it's north or southbound and whether it's on or off the bridge. And between the state and the county and the city and the auxiliary, you've got a pretty sizable police force that could pitch in for that occasion. And how often over a period of time, every 5 to 10 years, does that really happen? The one last I could think of is the truck accident north of the bridge. So that had to be routed. But a plan could be created for the temporary rerouting of cars around the Butamore Bridge area. It could be done, and if there was a plan ahead of time, no problem.
But if you have a road diet, can you, if the traffic has to be rerouted north, can't you just take your center lane and that gives you your 2 lanes forward? Your turning lane now becomes, now you have 2 lanes exiting the city, or you have 2 lanes coming in.
Yeah, I think the issues are with the alternate route, it has to be designated ahead of time so you know what to happen when there is an emergency. The Jackson Street is one of the only main north-south arterial streets through the city that's could handle that volume of traffic that would get routed off of 41. I know we talked about Algoma Boulevard, which being an alternate, but that's so close to the bridge. If you had an issue on the bridge, I mean, you wouldn't even be able to get off on Algoma Boulevard. So, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, but I don't see a real good alternative for north-south traffic through the city.
No, and much of what you described, that has been multi-jurisdictional, including the state in developing that as the alternative. We even coordinate, and I can actually, I don't remember if it was the 3rd week or the final week of December was the last time we actually rerouted. There was an accident on Butamore in December, and we rerouted, and we actually even coordinate with the street department so that we can have that salt laid down the minute that we are notified so that it's safe, and then we change the traffic pattern, the traffic lights and the restrictions through there based on what the volume is so we can keep a constant flow. It works very well. It's been designed that way, and in looking at all the alternatives, I mean, I've been in meeting after meeting for many years on what the best route is, and that's the one that was identified as the one that could handle the volume of traffic in a safe manner. Keeping in mind all the various types of roads.
What are the drawbacks then if you have road diet and you just take that center lane now that becomes 2 lanes? You don't have a yeah.
I don't want to step on Jim's area, but I'll talk just very generically. You're pumping a high volume of traffic through that road, and any restrictions that you make, I just got done saying we do the opposite. We actually open up. Sometimes we'll take over the lights, depending on what the volume is.
Yeah.
We want to be able to get that traffic through that and back into or back onto the highway. So we don't want to restrict in any way, shape, or form.
But we're still having 2 lanes. We still would have it 2 lanes for emergency
You still
route.
have 2 lanes, whether...
Well, you're assuming both sides of the bridge aren't closed.
Yeah, and how do
that's
you,
what-
and if you've got a center turn lane that's painted as a center turn lane with yellow markings, turn arrows, how do you redesignate that as a through lane of traffic on the fly?
It's a 9/10 of a mile.
Well, I'm just saying, you're going to have auxiliary officers standing every so many feet to, I mean,
It could be figured out, instead of just saying, no, it won't work, because you can take 2 lanes in one direction, 1 in the other, and the center lane would be the one that is either way, depending on southbound or northbound traffic. And you turn it into a 2-lane in the heavy
Emergency
direction.
route. Yeah, emergency route.
Yeah, I think that would violate basically motorist expectations, because you'd have people, you'd have to somehow, and you'd have to have so many people out there explaining to people what they're supposed to do, because people, it would be a shared left turn lane in the center with solid lines which you're not supposed to cross unless you're ingressing or egressing driveways or intersections. So, I mean, that would be a real safety concern. I think that would be that'd be a traffic nightmare. I mean, people wouldn't know what to do unless you had somebody guiding them, a lot of people guiding them.
What about Algoma and the new Highway 45 of 0110?
Well, I think we talked about with Algoma Boulevard that's so close to the bridge. I mean, if something happened on the bridge and you use that as an alternate route, it's going to back up past the exit. It's too close to the bridge to use as an alternate route.
For southbound? Okay. Well,
I think the key thing here is that road was built and designed as a central north-south road into the city of Oshkosh and out of the city of Oshkosh into the central city. I was not on the council when that was decided, but having worked for the sheriff's office for many years, Highway 76 is a major corridor into the city of Oshkosh. And that I think that the key things are of what your concerns are is actually the 4 suggestions that you recommended at the top for remedies, which I think the police department has been addressing and continues to address, which is to control the speed on the street, have a little more higher presence of patrol officers in the area, increase the radar usage. We don't have an ordinance that would allow surveillance cameras at this time, and there's questions whether the courts will even accept them now as legitimate traffic enforcement. So, but I think increasing the enforcement side of it, looking possibly at the speed limit, are some of the remedies that can happen. Because unfortunately, and as Mr. Roloff said in his letter to you, and he sent to council and all of us, is that this road was designed this way with the work of the state of Wisconsin. That's why the roundabout got put in there. The road was designed for the volume of traffic that it's handled. And unfortunately, like some other streets within the city of Oshkosh, it is a major thoroughfare with residential homes in the area. And people have to be, the drivers and users of those streets have to be aware of those situations to make it as safe as possible for everybody, users and citizens living in the area. But I don't think as a city we can redesign that street. It does not. With the funding that we received and will continue to receive to maintain that roadway, it's important to all the citizens of Oshkosh to keep that Jackson Street corridor the way it is.
Well, I realize if you lose a lane, you lose money.
It's more than that, but the infrastructure of it is important in that. But so, I would not, as a council member at this point, and as on the traffic review, I support what we're currently doing to reduce the problems in that area. I don't think a road diet would work. It's too much of a major thoroughfare for all of the city of Oshkosh. And that's the biggest thing we have to look at when we look at making any of these street adjustments, but especially on major thoroughfare streets, we have to look at what would that impact be to 66,000 citizens that live in the city of Oshkosh too? Because that's a major street for all of those people, including truckers, county employees going to courthouse, city employees going to city hall, police department, all the infrastructure that those streets bring into the city, the university, and everything else. And so it was designed to be a major thoroughfare street.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and back in '95 when they were starting to talk about this, they projected to 2020 year,
Mm-hmm.
and they haven't come very close to the projection in numbers, and that was my comment back then. You're going to have 2020 vision and in the year 2020. And after we've gone through 15 plus more years, it hasn't come close to elevating with all of what you said, with all of the reasons why it should have a lot of traffic. It hasn't increased at that much of a rate. And I think it's because of a lot of places that were in business and don't exist in Oshkosh anymore is one of the reasons. But what causes the volume? It's a matter of drivers seeking where they can go the fastest. You got 25 or 30. We know what's going on with that problem. And calming, I commend Jim on looking at Murdoch, because if you look at intersections throughout that area of the city, there's a heck of a lot of them that are numbered as far as the crash report, that are up and down Murdoch and up and down Jackson. And it's, again, a calming would be very effective, whether it's a 147 driveways or what we're talking about. Homeownership going to rental. And the beautiful Jackson Street has to be the one that suffers as we go from homeowner to rental properties. We've got homes along there for 75 to 100, 150 years old. and we're just going to go downhill with that kind of treatment to the neighborhood, so to speak.
We have seen that.
Oh, we've been there
We've
since
been
1960.
64, and after the project went through, that first year, 17 homes were sold. And since then, as the older people die or they have to go to nursing homes, these families do a quick sale and it goes into rentals. And it's just moving at a rapid rate. I can probably say within 10 years, you will have almost a total rental area there. It's not going to be attractive as a gateway street for Oshkosh, and we've got nice architectural buildings there that should be protected, and it's part of our heritage. There's no way, the way we're living now, that you are attracting families and home ownership. You are definitely attracting a rental alley. And that means absentee landlords and people that don't have loyalty and ownership in these buildings. So it's not a nice way to come into the city. And when we looked at the crash records, this whole little section of Murdoch and Jackson, even after Highway 21 opened up their roundabout, Jackson still ended up, it's not ranking number 2 as being, one of the most dangerous. And then we looked at all the other streets that were involved with traffic situations, and it comes out with about 1/5 of the city's busiest intersections having accidents are sitting right in this little corridor of New York and, Jackson and Murdoch. So the whole area is kind of a high accident rate.
We think it would fit nice with the Murdoch calming road diet idea.
Yeah, because then you would develop a consistent driving pattern all the way around, and then people aren't searching for a fast route. Now, the traffic counts, I don't know, Jim, have you, in 1994, I got this out of my records, and that time it was 11,643 cars. It was a one-day tally.
Sure. Yeah, it's up to, on the state's interactive website, which 2013 was the most recent, it was up to 14,700 between Congress and New York, and it was 13,900 just south of Murdoch. So the traffic volume has increased. Generally when they do when they reconstruct the street like they did, they do it, like you referenced, a 30-year projection. So I don't know what their 30-year projection was, but it has increased quite a bit since the original.
See, I was just looking at the numbers from the speed things, and we took the totals of those northbound and southbound.
Yeah, that's not accurate though. Like I explained to you when we met, is that the reason that's not accurate because we set up the speed tubes for that study. We set them up to count this for the speed limits, and you set them up differently if you're going to count traffic. So the DOT is actually, when they do their counts, it was set up for traffic counts. So you set up the tubes differently, so you can't use the counts off of a speed study because they tend to be inaccurate. So this DOT estimate's probably the most accurate. I could put tubes out there to do a traffic count, and it should give me numbers pretty close to this. So, that's where the traffic counts.
Well, then, what can we do to make this more livable and be an asset to the city, and a deficit to the city? Because, and Jim and we've talked, you actually have to get out on that sidewalk, and when residents are snow throwing and they're shoveling and raking and weeding, you actually have to experience it, because the side view mirrors are this far from you, because now the new trucks, when that road was built, the side view mirrors did not stick out like that. Now they're just huge, and the trucks, the pickup trucks are wider now, and so you are just inches away from everything.
Gets to be pretty close, and the people don't move over, they don't slow down.
Yeah.
There got to be some thought in that one, and then too, for move over policy like they have out on the down the state road.
Yeah, so we're wondering if you're not gonna
Somebody's
do,
gonna get clipped.
yeah, we're wondering if you're not gonna do a road diet, I don't know what else you can do, because your police force needs more help. They need more people. If you want to, if you're counting on them to enforce the calming, then you have to increase that. The DOT seems to be operating on two philosophies.
Yeah.
They want to move a lot of traffic fast, and now they're realizing that they've created a problem. And we just experienced in Milwaukee, when you take Highway 45 and you get off on Watertown Plank Road, they've done a massive off-ramp there, and they're making the people make a complete U-turn. And as you enter onto this thing, if you are going more than 25 miles an hour, there's an automatic signal said you are driving too fast. The whole thing slows everything down, and then you meld on very nicely and slowly to get into the Freighter Hospital and the clinics on the Watertown Plank Road. And so they themselves are realizing that they've got to calm people down from getting off of the fast highways. On Jackson Street, they come flying off of there, and that's a straight shot all the way down Jackson. If you actually get in your car and you put your car at the speed limit that cars are supposed to travel at, you will be passed, and you will be lost in the dust.
How often are each of you been on Jackson Street and doing the speed limit, and somebody's up your tailpipe because you're in their way?
Yeah.
We travel it daily, north and southbound, and we've come in from Highway 41 and actually stayed with traffic at 45 miles an hour, and then we dropped off. And we've gone that route once in a while. And we're going 35 plus past New York, et cetera, where people are jumping lanes around you because you're going the speed limit. Now, the road factor, the vehicle factor, and the human factor make up the driving situation. And the road factor has been considered for years, DOT and everything, interstate, thanks to Eisenhower, and so on. And the cars have come a long way. What's dragging the feet is the human factor. And that's why Jackson Street Roundabout is probably still number 2. People, how long do they need to get used to? If they stop every once in a while, they have to readjust. And if they were going 35, they'd get stopped at New York because they're going faster than the lights were set.
Now, when the police are around,
And thank you, we've had a number of arrests in the neighborhood.
While they're around, everybody's driving the speed limit. As soon as they have to leave, it goes back up again.
Calming has to be approached somehow.
So it's a thing, not just our neighborhood, but I mean, it's for the city. You're gonna ruin a whole section of the city, and you're gonna have a crime rate problem, because you're gonna just not be attracting homeowners, you're gonna be attracting transient people. And then that goes down to the police department. So it isn't, that we're just looking at our property. We're just looking at the whole situation.
Tim, could I just advise the board of kind of what we've been doing with regard to this matter? So, we got the letter as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I came in and stopped by the Wanschneider's home. After I left there, we had already been doing a lot of work, particularly with the roundabout. Same thing we've talked about in other meetings in the past, where early on people would slingshot out of the roundabout. So that was our main emphasis, going north-south. And then our other emphasis is on the other end at the crossing at New York and Jackson there. We have a heavy presence there, particularly when school lets out, but throughout the day, because that's always an area of high concern. So we're kind of on both ends there. And you had asked the question of what could we do. So what we did after we met with the Wanschneiders is I took the north end districts, there's 3 districts the police department has, the city broke up into, that affects this area. So I brought all the officers together. The particular officer, and I'm glad to see his card, is Grant Wilson is the actual officer. That's his neighborhood. He met with the Wanschneiders, also heard the concerns. We pulled everybody together, and it was about being empathetic. It was saying, go out into the neighborhood, and hopefully you saw them actually walking your sidewalks. Some of the points that I pulled from it was, in the wintertime, the plows shoot the snow actually hitting the front porch and things like that. So some of the things that we could affect was, we talked with Public Works and said, hey, just be cognizant of the fact that if we could slow the plows down just a little bit, it might not shoot everything covering the sidewalks that have been cleared, or the homes, might improve quality of life. We talked about, I had officers pull into their driveway. The approach is pretty steep when you pull out. If you pull out too fast, it actually scrapes the back end of the car. So I wanted them to see what it's like to live there. And that is strictly to get an awareness of, go out there then and slow the car, be that much more vigilant in slowing down traffic, because these are some of the problems that they experience, probably some of their other neighbors experience as well. We also put out, we have a speed board. It's not as, I don't think it's as good as what Jim has access to, but we have a speed board where we put that out for 2 weeks. And if I remember right, I met with my officers on the November 18th, so it would have been 2 to 3 weeks prior to that, and we had low counts for high violations and speeding. To be honest with you, it was lower than what I was expecting. Go back even further, and I don't have the study with me, but I think it was 6 years ago, I had sent our entire department, we looked at the whole stretch of Jackson Street for this same reason, and we did a major push. We did it in the media. We told people we were going to do it. We put a lot of people out in the area. We did a community meeting, and what we've seen is, since that time to the current, we have slowed traffic down. Now, is it always to the level that we hope for? No. I can tell you that it has gotten better from my trips back and forth. I do a lot back and forth to the Sheriff's Department, and I do not take a squad. I take my own personal vehicle on short trips. So I'm just driving a white vehicle down the road, and in my opinion, that has gotten better. But what's important for us as a department, and what I stressed was, this is one of those situations that we're going to have to constantly be on top of. Another point that you had brought out was that when Merrill lets out, that sometimes those kids don't cross at the crosswalk. So we got letters and flyers out based on your recommendation to the school to send home with kids, cross at the crosswalk where we have crossing guards, Jackson and New York right there. So we aren't going to change our presence. We track everything on a SharePoint website. The last officers that documented that they were out there, we have a running tally of what we're doing out there, and I didn't print it off. I wasn't going to bore anybody with it, but it was the 25th of January was the last radar detail. You probably saw the officers when you came in doing a radar detail. We have an officer that stands out with a radar unit or does it from a squad, and then we have anywhere from 3 to 4, probably 2 to 4 chase vehicles. And the last time that was done in this stretch was roughly 2 weeks ago. So we are keeping a constant connection to the area. I don't know how much Grant has gotten out to you, but I have the pop-up reminders actually set on my computer for many of these problems where I know we're just going to have to keep going back. I think we are doing something, and I think it's important to connect with, even considering snow plowing and other things like that. Maybe a snowplow does go through fast once in a while. Maybe a car does speed once in a while. We just got to be vigilant with it. So that's what we've been doing with regard to it, and we do have it on our radar. So, and can we be there all the time? No. I'm not here to tell you that, and I can tell you that day.
Not with the size of your force.
The fact that when we met, you said you're seeing us on both ends, and that we're making our presence, I think, is an important factor in the overall plan. And Steve, to speak about what the city did in its design, we're a little piece of that puzzle as a department. It's our job then to say, this was part of the overall design, this is where we fit in, we got to slow it down. And the stats do show that roundabout is higher in those accidents, all those slow speed accidents. For some reason, I don't know if it's all the extra businesses in that area or if it's because it's a little tighter curve, I'm not sure, but it is something we work on. We have also worked on pedestrian crossing in all of the roundabouts, particularly that one, where we actually have officers just in a regular plain clothes going through to see what the reactions are to the vehicles, and making sure that they aren't driving so fast and that they can slow down. So I just wanted to kind of get the board up to speed on what we're doing to try to respond to some of the neighborhood issues there.
Can I ask one other question?
Sure.
How many arrests are there for motorcycles on our little 9/10 of a mile?
Well, I couldn't even tell you right off the top of my head. I can tell you that one of the department goals that we set last year was to increase our ticket-to-stop ratio for all vehicles. And so we have pushed very hard to get officers to realize that we have to slow traffic down, and a warning isn't doing it. So we're increasing not only our traffic stops, but the ticket-to-stop ratio on those stops. And that doesn't speak specific to motorcycles. Springtime, obviously, everybody gets their bikes out. Normally, we're dealing with loud mufflers more than anything.
Well, but then they're lane hopping all the time.
Have you approached the fact of a more higher rate of conviction?
We do have to consider all of that, and I think we actually talked about that. There's a cause and effect. So what happened the first time that we went at the Jackson Street, what I'll say is our first attempt to slow traffic down about 6 years ago, is we started writing more tickets based on the citizen input. I think they want us to be ticketing at, I think they originally wanted us at 8 over, and then we settled on 10 over as an agreeable kind of benchmark. We ended up jamming up the courts, and one of our learning points was we didn't talk through it far enough to get to the clerk of courts and everybody who processes all these tickets and the prosecutors and the judges. So we learned from that, and during that project, we then went through, I actually had to request the chief to meet with the judges and, show them that this is in response to those concerns. So we did that again this year when we said traffic is increasing all over, the speeds are increasing all over. We need to be taking a harder approach to it. So we went through the whole thing because we learned that, 6 years ago.
There was too many forgiven years ago.
And we use everything at our disposal, from media to our websites to, the courts and everybody that's part of our system.
Call the question. That actually needs a second.
No, I thought you were,
No, I'm
Second.
suggesting we call the question.
yeah, second it.
What I'm calling the question.
Okay. Becker?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Oz? Szynski?
Aye.
Herman?
No.
Schuster?
Aye.
Go to the question. Chief, if Robert's rules are...
Carried 5-0.
No, that was the call the question.
Right.
Now we have to
Now we
call,
have-
now I have to vote on the motion.
Right.
So are you calling the roll for the motion?
All right. Becker?
No.
Ross?
No.
Oz?
No.
Szynski?
No.
Herman?
No.
Schuster?
No.
Lost 0-6. Okay, and then the last thing we had was just a staff statement. And just for anybody that might be watching that's not aware of what a road diet is, basically what we're talking about is there's one lane of traffic in each direction and then a two-way left turn lane in the middle. So the review board previously had approved the road diet concept on Murdoch between Algoma and Wisconsin Avenue. And this started, as most of you are aware, probably 2008 to 2010. My predecessor had worked on it, and the board had approved it in 2012. It just, with the staff turnover, it hadn't gotten as much traction as we'd like, as quickly as we'd like. But, so that concept's already been approved. We're to the point now where I talked with the DOT, they're supportive of it and have given their okay to the plans. Here Interestingly, or conversely, to Jackson Street, the traffic volume is a lot less. The 30-year projections were in the 10,000 range, and that's approximately what it is, with the threshold for ODOT's being about 15,000. So we did, the plan currently, since this has already passed traffic review and the Plan Commission's already got a look at it as well, we'll be having a public meeting with residents and business owners on Murdoch Avenue this spring. And then if all goes well, then we'll proceed with the plan this coming summer. So after the meeting, if you want, I did bring some drawings of what that'll look like. It's nothing too exciting, but basically it just shows the concept of what it'll look like. The interesting parts of it will be the biggest challenge is the transition out of the roundabout, and I think we've addressed it. So you'll be able to see the markings will start just before, when you're going westbound, just before Wisconsin Avenue, so we can get traffic over, but then the bike lanes won't start until west of Wisconsin. And the idea is bike lanes will go from Algoma to Wisconsin, and then we'll route the bike lanes north on Wisconsin. So that's the idea for the bike lanes. And then we had some discussions with where to start the road diet, and we chose to start it just west of Wisconsin. What that'll allow us to do is put left turn lanes there at the Wisconsin intersection. And the original reason that this came about was the higher crash rate at the Wisconsin Murdoch intersection, and also the Vinland Elmwood Murdoch intersection, where, as any of you that have been on the board for a while realize, we get a request for a traffic signal at that intersection yearly because of the offset there, and all the kids going to North High School and their parents, obviously. So I just want to give you an update where we're at with that, and like I said, if you want to take a look at the drawings, that's what we'll be proceeding to go to a public meeting with.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.